The UK's Environment Secretary has welcomed President Macron's announcement that France will delay taking retaliatory measures against British boats in the ongoing fishing dispute. France had threatened to stop British boats offloading at its ports from today. But Brexit Minister David Frost will meet France's European Affairs Minister on Thursday to discuss a range of Brexit issues, including the dispute. However, a British vessel seized by the French last week that was earlier understood to have been released still remains in the port of Le Havre. Well, let's join two of our correspondents now, Shona Murray in Brussels and Tig Enright in London. Shona, there must be some relief in EU circles that the row has been diffused, at least for now.
That's right, Alistair. I suppose for now, but of course we have until Thursday only. I think first and foremost that they're happy here in Brussels and elsewhere because, of course, any escalation would take a lot of important attention away from what's happening in Glasgow and COP26. Really, from an EU's point of view and obviously from the French point of view, there's a very strong feeling that those licences, they do genuinely belong to the French fishermen and women who they say have been fishing in Jerseys for decades, in some cases a couple of 100 years. So from the EU point of view, they are glad that for the moment there's much more technical conversations ongoing as to how to resolve this issue, as opposed to right now where we could have been facing a major escalation of relations between the EU and the UK involving France. So there's a small bit of relief, but only a bit of hope that the situation can be resolved by Thursday. Alistair?
Well, Tig in London, relief there, I imagine, as well, that these French retaliatory measures have been put on hold, at least for now. Is this being portrayed by the British government and its supporters as a climb down by the French?
Yeah, it certainly is. I would say that's how it's being described widely in the media, certainly, even by publications which aren't typically as friendly towards the government as some others might be. And of course by the government itself. The Environment Secretary, George Eustace, speaking today, said that France had retreated from its threats because it looked more closely at the evidence. And the UK government is continuing to insist that when it comes to the granting of fishing licences, that it is living up to its side of the Brexit trade agreement. But something else that George Eustace said did indeed raise questions about his grip, perhaps even the government's grip, about what is actually going on. As you mentioned, there was the suggestion that the trawler which had been seized by France last week had been released. That's something that he said today, but we subsequently learned from the owners of the Cornelis Gertjan that no, it's not been released. It's still tied up in Le Havre.
Shona, France was trying to get Brussels on side in this dispute, and now the Commission is involved in these talks, but they're presumably be wanting to stop this from degenerating into a wider EU row.
Oh, absolutely, Alistair. Actually, the Commission was involved all along. It was the Commission because obviously it negotiated the trade and cooperation agreement between the EU and the UK. So it is responsible. And Maros Šefčovič's office, for example, and other commissioners were there with the French government when these licences were being applied for. So they've worked very hard on this all throughout the summer. As we know, this issue has been ongoing for several months now. So the Commission very much has to go and help the French to go through the terms and conditions of the trade and cooperation agreement to basically point out that they are upholding it. And it is the Commission's position that these fishermen and women have met the standards and the requirements to be able to have those licences returned. That's the position that the Commission will be taking, very much defending France on this. But of an overall picture, Alistair, I mean, you're right, as we mentioned earlier, nobody wants to see the situation escalated. There's already ongoing issues between the UK and the EU over the Northern Ireland Protocol. And if you think of the past 5 years in general, relations have fairly deteriorated quite badly. So people would like to see an end to this.
Well, Tig, just briefly, this does seem to have been portrayed in London in particularly fiery terms, especially by Brexit supporters, targeting their fire on the French in particular.
Yeah, plenty are enjoying the reawakening of old rivalries, which had for decades been subdued by EU membership. You know, other parts of this government have enjoyed the new antagonism with France. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has criticised France for its handling of migrants crossing the English Channel. And even Boris Johnson seems to see little point in having good relations with Paris. Cast your mind back just a short time ago when we were talking about the announcement of the AUKUS alliance between the US, UK and Australia, and what that meant for the French deal to supply submarines to Australia and the French reaction to that. Boris Johnson told Paris to prenez un grip and donnez-moi un break. That said, though, at a time when President Macron is trying to get more French voters to like him as he goes into an election cycle, he's got little to gain from, I think, fostering better relations with Boris Johnson, the cheerleader for Brexit.